This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this.
Good evening. Seem to have made it through another week. My gratitude to all of you who are supporting me and continuing to support me through the transition. We clearly have enemies, the most powerful enemies, who are determined to close us down. And all that is left to them now to close us down is to put pressure on the social media platforms to try and silence us, not because we're telling lies, not because we're far-right activists. No, none of those things. The reason why they're trying to close us down is because they want to censor the truth, censor how our town has been ruined by a team of corrupt politicians, inept council officers, and a network of Asian criminal cartels. Okay, we are going to go straight to... I'm going to bring her up. We have got... Hi, Debbie.
Good evening, Roger. How are you?
I'm good. I just want to, we've got a lot to get through, so I'm not messing today. We're just gonna pile right through this today, Debbie. And I think it's really, really important I have you on, because you spoke to me and you're in tears 2 weeks ago, Debbie, and I didn't want to exploit you, and I didn't want to have you on last week because it was too raw. So, I'll hand over to you, Debbie. Tell me tell the people what's going on.
Well, I've received my letter from the police. For people that don't know, I was getting messages about how people knew where I was and that they wanted to rape me, and they knew where I was.
Oh, hold on. Whoa. Just go back. People knew where you lived and they wanted to rape you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is resulting from Mr. Irish Immy. Sorry, I'm just trying to get myself...
We have many viewers on tonight because of the kindness of Paul Boots-Erock, who shared my private link with everyone and anyone. So I just thought it might as well just invite everyone. And it's important we invited everyone, Debbie, because we can't be seen to fear these people. And I know the names of my supporters have been logged by a malicious blogger linked to Jim McMahon, Arood Shah, and Sean Fielding, including yours. And he's been going around sharing people's names in his attempts to intimidate and silence and shut you people down. And the latest today I heard, Debbie, is that my Sunday night transmissions were my underlying motive to anyone who listens to me regularly is I believe we need to take control of our town back. And the way to do that is to raise political awareness and get people to go and vote for a group of independent candidates. And if that is vigilantism, I give up. So that's what's gone on, Debbie. And you're on here and you've, and Irish Immy is an associate of these people. Irish Immy, to people who don't know, is Dale Cregan's getaway driver. He's a convicted heroin dealer. He is one of the most prolific gangsters in Oldham. And he is the deputy leader and Jim McMahon's parliamentary assistant, Arood Shah's childhood friend, and those are her terms, who she has been photographed hanging off his arm. And when we raised that as a concern, he went ballistic, didn't he, Debbie? And he, instead of just coming after me, he came after you.
Roger. He didn't like that one bit. He doesn't like the fact that we share, or that I've shared the truth about him, because let's have it said, he did drive Dale Cregan, who did kill 2 police officers, one of them from Oldham, Dale Cregan murdered these police officers, and Irish Immy drove Dale Cregan. That's the truth. It's the fact. It's out there for all the world to see. So why he thinks it's, we're spreading falseness, I've got no idea. The man's, I don't know I don't know where this man's thought process comes from. Obviously not from anybody I know, but he doesn't like the fact that we share what he's done. So he's made a point of targeting myself. So what he decided to do, October last year, Roger, he shared my face. I'm there, I'm clapping outside my house for all the nurses and for the NHS, and he took a photograph of me outside my house, and then he stated that I'm a racist, Debbie the racist Barrett Cole, as he calls me, and then he shared that to it's been shared to 18 Muslim Islamic groups. And
the consequence of that is you've had messages from people wanting to rape you.
Yeah. I had a message from a person. I laughed it off, Roger. Because I am a strong person, and I laughed it off. But then when I was going into Oldham Town Centre and people were looking at me really strange, and I went to the ICC Centre, and picture it, Roger, I've got a mask on, so all you can see is this. All you can see is that. And I just asked for a copy, and I'm recognised, and people are saying, I know you. And people are looking at me, and I'm thinking, you're even wearing a mask, and I'm not safe. So I've had to move. I've had to move out of my home, out of my area that I've lived all my life.
And you went to the police. And
yeah, I did.
Whilst you went to the police, in the middle of that, or in the midst of that, the police saw fit to come and harass you for lawfully protesting about the grooming and gang rape of children in this town.
Correct. I went and did a protest outside Sean Fielding's house, which I was well within my rights to do. The police attended. They didn't arrest me. They didn't move me, nothing. The next minute, I'm being taken to court by Oldham Council for a civil matter, which was actually, it was Sean Fielding's girlfriend who made the crime, who reported the crime.
You won't know this. You won't know this, but I heard today, or this week I heard, that there was someone who was potentially coming forward to stand as an independent candidate. And I had observed a series of conversations he had with others where he was toying with the idea. A local lad who is very much loyal to his community and would have done very well. He then went quiet on me, and it then turned out that the council had turned up mob-handed at his work to do a series of random inspections to target him. The council are interfering with the democratic processes of our town and our country unlawfully, illegally, and now, as well as harassing you and scaring you away, they are clearly involved in intimidating people from standing for election. It's beyond belief. It's beyond belief. Paul Entwistle is the borough solicitor. What happened to you could not have happened without the active involvement of the borough solicitor, Paul Entwistle. Paul Entwistle has been involved in numerous dubious deals and cover-ups in this town. And honestly, as well as Sean Fielding being arrested, and we'll get onto that later, Paul Entwistle and Dr. Carolyn Wilkins should be charged and arrested. This town is crooked, and the reason why they want to shut us down is because we will repeat that the leadership in this town, the way this town is governed, and by those who govern it, they are bent and they are in bed with gangsters. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Jim McMahon's allowed Irish Immy to post on his Facebook page. But do you know what? None of the older people can, because half of them are blocked.
So Jim McMahon is blocked. So this is the town's MP, the shadow minister. People watch these transmissions now, Debbie, from everywhere. the Shadow Minister for Transport, Jim McMahon, has got a clear association with the getaway driver of an Oldham cop killer.
Yeah.
Not only that, Jim McMahon gave the getaway driver of an Oldham cop killer a reference to aid with his sentencing.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what they want to hide. This is what they want to hide.
Yeah, he did. He got him a reference and got him out earlier, didn't he?
No, his reference was to do with probation. It was to do with his probation arrangement so he could stay in Oldham. Now, what Jim McMahon won't answer is Irish Image during probation was arrested and thrown back in prison for what the police, if you read the reports, implies drug dealing. He had 2 mobile phones and was doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. This is a convicted heroin dealer he gave a reference to so he could stay in the town. And it appears that whilst he stayed in the town, he continued on with his criminal behaviour that resulted in him being thrown back in prison. What is the association in Oldham with the Shadow Minister for Transport, Keir Starmer's Shadow Minister, and organised crime? And I'm saying this, come and arrest me if you want. Do you think I care? Come and arrest me. Because I find it outrageous that the Shadow Minister for Transport, an MP in this town, has a clear association with a convicted heroin dealer who was the getaway driver of an Oldham cop killer. I find that outrageous.
And I find this outrageous.
What have the police said to you, Debbie? Come on, because it's clear to me the police are of the hands tied because of the Andy Burnham link. Go on.
See this here. This is from D.I. Blaine. This is he calls himself the gatekeeper. He's the gatekeeper for the police. He's independent, he says, and he's the gatekeeper, and he decides whether what people have done you get charges for. This gatekeeper.
He's blocked it, hasn't he? He's blocked your complaint and prevented it from going to the CPS. Yeah.
Yeah, here he is. There's his name and address. There you are. Can you see it?
No, I can't see any of that, Debbie. There's no point in you doing that because we can't see it.
Right, well, there he is. He's on there for all the world to see. Right, I'll put it up after. But there he is. And, you know, the fact that Sean Fielding is classing me as a far-right racist and that I'm a criminal, which I'm none of those.
So the beginning of this is another associate of Irish Immy, Councillor Shahid Mushtaq, and the family, the brothers Mushtaq, who, out of thin air, shouted across the council chamber at you that you're a racist.
Correct.
Because he didn't like the fact that you wouldn't leave a council meeting without having a question answered, and the question was so simple, it was to do with Shabir Ahmed and the cover-up of grooming and trafficking of children in our town. And they all, you know, that shameful day where he stuck his chin up, Fielding, the wuss, and marched out, and all of his councillors marched out with him. Instead of answering a question to do with Pakistani grooming gangs in Oldham.
It was one question I wanted to ask Raja. On the 6th of November 2019, it was one question, and they would not allow me to ask that one question. And they postponed that meeting twice. They brought the police in, who didn't remove me because they said, well, we can see you're not causing a disturbance. They did everything in their power to not allow me to ask that one question, which was 5 minutes of their time. They suspended that meeting for over an hour rather than answer one question. Appalling, Oldham Council. And every single councillor walked out at that meeting.
Twice. And when you finally left, because I remember watching this on my phone along with thousands of others because it went viral. You know, this council meeting went viral. And I remember that when you left because your battery was running out or something, you announced.
That's right.
And Shahid Mushtaq, Councillor Shahid Mushtaq from Glodick, it's the same place where Arooj Shah's from and Irish Imi and all the other, so the Dale Cregan's grenades that he used to kill 2 police officers were found in Glodick, in a drain pipe in Glodick. And these people, they're just outrageous. And ever since then, that created that space where this false narrative that you are racist, I am a racist, I'm a far-right activist, I'm a Nazi, and all of this is to try and shut us down. And every week, Debbie, I spend so many hours every week dealing with complaints to social media companies like Facebook because we know it's the Labour Party. We know it's the cartels. We know it's the cartels because there's nothing I've ever said that's racist. In fact, I helped design our country's anti-racist strategies. Everything that's progressed now, I helped design. I worked with 2 prime ministers and designed this. In fact, I've worked with 4 prime ministers, 4 past prime ministers, directly and indirectly. And these people, Neil Wilby, Ewan Stewart, Arooj Shah, Sean Fielding, Jim McMahon, want to push this narrative that somehow working class people in my town who look like me and who look like you, who refuse to demonize each other, who refuse to quickly judge others, that somehow we're racist.
Yeah. And the context of being called a far-right racist, do you know how bad that is, Raj? Well, you do know. It's appalling what they're saying. It's disgusting what they're saying. And the police are now supporting them.
So what D.I. Blaine, and I've met D.I. Blaine once and I've chatted to him once. Now he is, your position, and I've spoke to some of the other victims, and I'll get to that. He's a gatekeeper, isn't he? His job was
He's a gatekeeper. He calls himself a gatekeeper.
Oh, it gets worse. You don't know this. I'll share this with you. So the police officer in charge of Oldham was a decent man. His name was, Jim Faulkner, Detective Chief Inspector Jim Faulkner. And right. Jim came and found me 2 years ago when I first raised what was going on in the town. And he found me, Debbie, because, far-right racists like me or criminals like me, he found me because I have friends of mine who are police officers. So he managed to track me down for your friends of mine who are police officers. And I had a coffee with him. And he has mysteriously stepped down and moved on. I don't think it's a coincidence that he has moved on almost immediately after the police refused to investigate Sean Fielding and failed to arrest him. I don't think it's a coincidence that the most senior police officer in this town has moved on after I've reported, and the police have sat on it, and they can sue me, they can arrest me, they can do what they want. I don't care. I'm not scared of them. But I want to know why the police are refusing to investigate clear cases of corruption I've put to them, and one of them involves the sale of Glodick baths days before an election at a knockdown price to declared friends of Arooj Shah who were standing at that election. There was no need for that sale to go through a few days before the election. That was a bribe. And they can arrest me, they can charge me, and I'll stand up in court and I'll say to a jury and I'll say to the judge, I consider that to be a bribe. And that's why it's unlawful. You cannot sell discount public assets days before an election. Can you, Carolyn Wilkins? Dr. Carolyn Wilkins must have been in on it. Paul Entwistle, the borough solicitor, must have been in on it.
Yeah,
and they won't investigate. They won't investigate.
No, they do. They all know, Raja. They all do know. So because of all the actions of everything, I've had to move out of Oldham, as you know.
And do they know where you live, Debbie? Do they know where you live?
Yeah, they know where I live. because Sean Fielding is Oldham Council leader, and I've done a house swap. So all he has to do is go on the council website, and he knows where I am. He knows where I am. I'm just waiting for somebody to turn up at the door. But where I am now, it's not Greater Manchester Police that's in charge, and they know everything that's going on.
So you're being protected by the police force where you are?
Yeah, I am.
And you'll have to move again, I presume, Debbie, where you are, and that way the council house swap address is lost somewhere in the system. Yeah. Yeah,
one more move, and then that's I'm vanished out of the thin air, if you like.
So you've had to leave your home, your friends, and your family, your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Because the police refused. They didn't even question him, did they? They refused.
They've not even interviewed. They've not interviewed anybody. They've not investigated anything at all. And do you know how long they sat on it, Raja? They've sat on it for months and months and months and months. And they've not interviewed. They said, oh, we're investigating. They are not investigating. They didn't investigate nothing. They haven't interviewed one person. Nobody.
It's called a cover-up. That's what it's called. It's
Correct.
called a cover-up. And I know there are other victims. I know, my friend Moya Buddin is a victim. I know Jane Barker, Mark Williamson, his daughter. They're all victims. Paul Errock, myself. And we've got evidence, black and white evidence of the crimes committed by the leader of Oldham Council, Sean Fielding. Crimes committed by him. That young man, whatever. Have you seen his hair lately, by the way? Have you seen what? I know you laughed at me and you said, I need a haircut, and I agreed, but maybe I need to wear an Alice band and rock that look.
Well, people say he is a bit of a girl, you know what I mean? What can I say? He is a bit of a girl, isn't he?
He's a
wuss. Arrogance will be his downfall, actually. His arrogance will be his downfall.
He's a disgrace. And not only is a disgrace, the town, because of how weak a leader he is, and a bully and an arrogant sod, because he's attracted around him the most inept group of council officers I've seen anywhere in the country in my life. He's got a chief executive who he allowed to leave on secondment whilst Oldham was at the height of COVID, at the top of the COVID charts in crisis. He allowed her to go on secondment, so she's not coming back. In fact, I've heard that they're now recruiting for a new chief executive. So Dr. Carolyn Wilkins has run away. But you're not going to run away from this, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins. The people of the town will chase you and insist that you stand in the dock for your role in the cover-up that has took place in this town, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins. The same with the borough solicitor, Paul Entwistle. You've committed crimes, Paul Entwistle, because you've been complicit in the cover-up of corruption.
Yeah.
And as for Sean Fielding, how long is Andy Burnham going to protect you, Sean? How long is your mate Andy Burnham going to protect you?
Well, his girlfriend works for Andy Burnham, doesn't she? Little Sophie, who was intimidated by a 58-year-old, and I am 58 now, and I am disabled, and I stood across the road. I weren't even at a front door. I didn't even knock on a door, but she was intimidated by me.
Oldham I has asked a question, and it's a legitimate question. How many honest coppers does it take to bring Oldham Council to task? Now, I don't know about you. I'm coming up to 50 now, Debbie. And I remember I grew up in the late 70s and we had a telly. And the TV wasn't allowed on all the time in case it blew up. But it was allowed on, I think, on a Friday or Saturday night. And we'd watch Starsky and Hutch. We'd watch Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch, yeah.
And, and we'd watch TJ Hooker later. And these cop movies, the professionals. And we all dreamt of growing up to be policemen. We all dreamt of being heroes because policemen to us were heroes. Policemen to us.
I was in the police cadets. My father was a police officer. My brother was a police officer. And I currently have a family member who is a police officer right now in the police force.
We grew up wanting.
At the time when I was leaving school, the police didn't wear glasses, and I started having migraine headaches. So and I had to wear glasses, and that stopped me joining the police force.
I don't understand it, Debbie. I have so many good friends of mine who are police officers.
Yeah.
What? Come on, guys. Look at me. What's going on here? A convicted heroin dealer who assisted a Dale Cregan in murdering 2 of your colleagues.
2 colleagues, 2 police officers.
And you go and harass the disabled grandmother so she's run out of town. And then the other victims, one of whom, Mark, is a retired policeman who's done 30 years of service.
Yeah.
And you help cover up crimes against him.
Yeah.
Where's your loyalty? Where's your integrity? Where is your pledge? You know, many of you will have grown up watching the same sorts of films and TV shows we did. We admire the police.
I grew up.
And this is what you've done.
I did. I grew up with this respect for the police. And the last time that they came to my house, when I just had a tooth out, and I weren't feeling so good because I'd had this tooth out, and they were there trying to stop me from going protesting outside Sean Fielding's house the day after. But I weren't well, so I cancelled it. But it really got to me, the fact that I said, no, you're not coming in my house. And I shut the door on them because I grew up and I've always had respect for the police. But do you know what, Roger? Do you know what I've got now? Nothing. That's what I've got for the police. No respect at all for Greater Manchester Police.
They are complicit. They are complicit in the cover-up of child abuse. And that has been proven already in Operation Augusta, where they refused or they failed to arrest Pakistani child abusers because it would be seen to be politically an issue to be arresting Pakistani men. So instead, they allowed children to continue to be raped.
Raped, battered, bitten, spat upon, trafficked, burnt with cigarettes, cut with knives. Children.
And the police allowed this, knowing what was going to happen to those children. And now you're allowing, in fact, you're not allowing, you're involved in my town, Debbie's town, our town, being overrun by criminals who have infiltrated the town hall, who have infiltrated the Labour Party to the point of where they've overtook it. Yeah. And you're not doing anything. This isn't some backwater in Africa. This isn't a dictatorship in South America or Saudi Arabia. This is the United Kingdom. We're better than this. We don't allow our elections to be rigged.
Obviously we do, Roger. Obviously that's the thing now, mate. That's the thing now, my friend.
No. And so I saw your post earlier today, and whilst I've got you on a bit lighter, you know, and I did laugh at it when I saw it. So there's a lady who's clearly very upset with her husband, who yeah.
Are you the outside cheater?
Yeah. So I lead a very simple life, Debbie, and my friends and family will tell you I have a daughter, and I spend my time reading, and my life is very, very simple. But those things aren't me. But what I found remarkable was the
Brilliant.
Manchester Evening News ran with the story, the other press ran with the story, but none of them will run with the story of, and it's proven now, the grooming and gang rape of children from outside the gates of Count Hill School. None of them will run with it, but they take part in this mirth of some lady who's miffed at her husband and caught him at it.
Yeah. Well, listen, where's the report on what's been happening in Failsworth School?
I have said it, and I look in the camera, and this is YouTube, so I'll do it on YouTube. To the 80 odd people who are listening to us live on my screen, 81 people who are listening to us live on our screen. Failsworth Secondary School, the Co-op Academy Failsworth, for 20 years at least, has had a number, I believe to be a network of sex offender teachers, child abusing teachers who have been protected and hidden by the school, the governing body and the council. Unfortunately, governors in that school included multiple senior Labour Party politicians going back to the previous MP all the way to the current council leader, Sean Fielding. In fact, Sean Fielding is a known associate of one of these men who then married his student. And one of the victims.
With another child.
And then after 50, he was allowed to continue teaching at that school. He was allowed to continue teaching at that school.
Yeah.
I'm lost for words. I've spent my life working with children.
Manchester Evening News, you've just gone, no, there's nothing to see here. Carry on as you want.
To make it worse, there's testimony from young women who were, at the time who were children, who were locked in classrooms, sexually abused, and when it was exposed, the children were suspended and only allowed to go back to school, providing they agreed to remain silent. Failsworth School.
Yeah. No report on that, is there, Raja? Just like there's no report on Shabir Ahmed, daddy from the grooming gangs. That weren't reported that he were a member at Labour Party and that he worked for Oldham Council.
When I released that, do you know where it came from, Debbie? It got worse. Shabir Ahmed not only worked for Oldham Council, he worked with vulnerable children and families for Oldham Council. He also volunteered in children's centres, so he had access to young children and vulnerable young mothers. And the council won't deny this. And my evidence so far has been, I'd say, pretty spot on. The mayor of Oldham at the time gave him a reference.
Oh, for God's sake. I'm lost for words, Raja, because I'm disgusted. I feel sick with them. Those poor children, and everything, and their lives have been ruined. What for? For a postal ball.
And we saw this week in The Guardian, no less, of how in Asian communities, the police have consistently failed to investigate child abuse because of community relations. We know what that is. It's not community relations. It's the cartels.
Yeah.
And the relationship with the Labour Party politicians who run those towns and communities. So they've had a quiet word. So it doesn't matter if brother Bashir or Uncle Abdul raped his kid or fiddled with his niece, and the kid went to the police crying. The police failed to investigate or failed to make an arrest. This isn't me making it up. It was in The Guardian this week.
Talking of investigation, this investigation that Andy Burnham's doing, that's still not contacted one of the main people that's in this case.
Why would they? Because they'll get caught. There's no one left. There's no one left who believes Andy Burnham's investigators are playing with a straight bat.
No.
These people interviewed ex-senior politicians who are robust and confident enough to refuse to sign their testimonies because they've been altered. Can you imagine if these testimonies were put in front of vulnerable young women? They'll have been intimidated into signing them. They were caught red-handed. Beverly Hughes, his team, Andy Burnham's team, were caught red-handed doctoring testimonies. And now, just before Christmas, Beverly Hughes, I don't understand. Sorry, I expect better of women when it comes to child abuse and I don't know if that's sexist, but I expect better.
I do, and it's a mother thing. It's a mother instinct thing. Women, yes, fathers have instincts, and yes, fathers love the children, and they do. But a mother has a mother's instinct, and for a woman not to want to protect any child, to me, is one of the worst things ever.
No reason given. No reason given. Buried in the news just before Christmas, so it wouldn't make, so it'd be hushed up very quickly. The grooming gang inquiry into Oldham that was due to report in November has now been delayed until after the elections. Oh, what a coincidence. What a coincidence.
They've got to try and figure out how are they going to hide the fact that Jim McMahon, when he was council leader, did what he did with the shisha bars.
Jim McMahon used, again, I'm doing this for the benefit of all the YouTube viewers who watch this or will be watching this, not believing that there's an Asian guy who's saying the things he's saying and he's somehow still not being arrested. Well, it's because it's all evidenced. I've spent 30 years of my life working for government, evidencing the work I do. It's evidence, people. The Shadow Minister for Transport, Jim McMahon, was involved in using the funeral of Lee Rigby to hide news of grooming gangs from parents. And when challenged, he's fabricated that somehow I'm involved in failures of child protection. 30 years of my life I've worked with children, Debbie. I've been to weddings, I've been to christenings. I have nothing but love for children, and it just is what it is. And no one in a 30-year career has ever accused me of any inappropriate anything with children. Ever. I even worked for the council. In my early career, I did at least a decade working for the council.
Yeah, you know the saying, Roger, I'd walk over hot coals for somebody. You would walk over hot coals for children, and so would I. If we could protect them, that's what we do. The way I walked over my hot coals, I went up to the council to ask one question. The way you're walking over hot coals is that you're proving with all the evidence every story that you put.
And to make matters worse, why is Jim McMahon not issuing a statement, a public statement? It's gone on for 2 years and they said it was lies and I was going to get locked up and this was going to happen and that was going to happen.
Dragged me into I was in the police station under caution. Oh, if you don't come in, we're going to arrest you. Do you remember that?
Of course I do, because they had the same conversation with me. Mr. Mayor, if you don't come to the police station voluntarily for an interview, we will come and arrest you. We have the power to come and arrest you. And at the same time,
I wish now, Roger, I would have let them arrest me.
Yeah, Debbie, I should have. At the same time, and the reason I didn't, Debbie, because my anxiety was that they would come and arrest me and put me in handcuffs in front of what was my 4-year-old daughter at the time. You know, and that was my anxiety. And I know the scumbag politicians that control the police officers would have constructed in such a way where that would have took place. And you know what these people did, Debbie?
As well.
When they questioned us under interview, Lo
Under
and behold, oh, sorry, under question, in the question was under caution. Lo and behold, Sean Fielding knows about it, and he's saying, "Oh, they've been arrested. This has happened. That's happened," to try and slur our good name and character. The only problem was Sean Fielding. It might have took 4 months or 5 months or 6 months. The consequence was there was no case to answer because we did nothing wrong. We have every right as people of this town to raise concerns of the grooming and gang rape of our children under your watch. We have every right to do that. And that does not make us racist. That does not make us any far right anything. In fact, you are a disgrace, Fielding. You, Arud Shah, Abdul Jabbar and all the others are a disgrace because you've sat on your hands whilst children in our town have been groomed, gang raped and trafficked. Every one of you should be in prison. Every one of you should be in prison.
We were all being charged in November, weren't we?
Yeah, what happened? What happened? What happened was Debbie Abrahams exposed for doctoring evidence to try and get me convicted. Doctoring evidence. An MP in this country doctored evidence to try and have me convicted.
Yeah. So that's where we're up to, Raja. I've moved out of Oldham, just to bring it round now. I've moved out of Oldham. I know you want to move on with other things. I am safe. I will tell people that I'm now in Somerset. So as soon as lockdown's over,
I've never been to Somerset, so sorry, I didn't ask you on purpose because I didn't want to know. So okay,
right,
that's a long way. That's a long way.
That's a long way. You're welcome to come and have some cider in a pasty.
Is that what it's known for, Somerset? I imagine just people playing.
Pasties.
Okay.
Cider and pasties down here. Yeah, they call you my love. Listen, I'm now a foreigner in my town because with my northern accent, I stand out like a sore thumb. So they're all protecting me around here.
I'm sad, Debbie. Because
no,
people like you.
I'm absolutely heartbroken. I'm laughing, and I do have a funny side, but I'm absolutely heartbroken. I'm missing my family really bad. I'm missing my grandchildren really bad. My sons, who were pain in the asses, sorry for swearing, but I'm missing them as well. I'm missing my friends. I'm missing my neighbours. You know, my school friends. I'm missing everybody. You know, there's all sorts going on in Bardsley. You know, the Black Diamond, the girl's been murdered there. And
let's talk about that because I'll bring it up and let's talk about that because I've got that somewhere. And
I've lived in Bardsley for 29 years. You know, I've lived there a very long time, and now, and I'm not there now. I'm in a strange place, and you know, it's lovely, but I don't have nobody here.
I've brought that up. So this is it. 2 arrested on suspicion of murder of a woman found stabbed. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, my issue with this thing, Debbie, is it's one of those HMOs, isn't it? It's those house of multiple occupancies, yeah?
Yeah.
And our town, under Sean Fielding and his council, have been passing these, giving these permission to spring up by private organizations who don't really have the skills and experience, who want to make money. They want to make money, yeah? And the springing up all over the town. Mark was on last week, and he was talking about the one in Shaw that they're trying to force through. They wanted 18 first, and that organization involved had donated £100,000 to the council a couple of weeks before the planning went in. So,
a new company, I heard, Raja.
Yeah, from a new company.
Yeah. £100,000 worth of PPE. Where did they get that from? Who do you know who do you know that starts up a company and then immediately donates £100,000? I need to think about that one, kid. I don't know many people that would do that.
The town is crooked. The town is bent.
But these people are vulnerable. They're being put in these homes and they're vulnerable. They're not taken care of. They could have addiction problems. They could have mental health problems. There's all sorts going on. And now look, the girl's been murdered. If you can hear a funny noise, it's my dog snoring. Sorry. She snores like a trooper. She's brilliant. So I apologise. I apologise for that.
Have they
It's
moved
not
okay?
me making a funny noise.
Because you took your dogs with you as well, didn't you? You had to, yeah.
Yeah. They're my only company. These are my friends. My friends are dogs. I'm so sad, Roger. I'm sounding sad. I'm sounding sad because my friends are dogs.
It's heart-wrenching. You'll have to turn your... I've got an echo on now, so have you...
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, they're snoring. There's not much more I can do. They are snoring their heads off. And that's my company.
I'm going to say goodbye.
Right, Roger, listen. You stay safe. Love you.
Take care. Love you too. We'll get our town back. And to those who call us vigilantes, we want our townsfolk to be educated about what's going on, to have the courage to speak out and not fear being called racist. And we want them to either stand for election or to go and vote in more numbers.
Please.
That doesn't make anything we're doing illegal or criminal at all.
No.
We are trying to protect our democracy in our town from corrupt politicians, inept council officers, and criminal Asian cartels.
Yeah, get them out. Get them out of Oldham. Take care, Roger.
Take care. Bye. So that's Debbie in Somerset. I didn't know she was in Somerset, actually, because I didn't want to ask her where she was in case someone asked me and this way. But she's... it's heart-wrenching, really, because Debbie was due to stand as candidate in Medlock Vale. She'd been campaigning for several years. And the Labour Party ran her out. It's as simple as that. Sean Fielding used the police and Sean Fielding used the council as his own private whatever. It was not possible without the complicity of Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, Rebecca Boobgate Sutcliffe, the copper who was done for gross misconduct for bullying another female officer and getting her boobs out. Gross misconduct, but somehow landed a job for £120,000 at Oldham Council. Made up job. The other deputy chief exec from Rossendale or wherever. Chaos behind her. A government investigation found her at fault for millions and millions of pounds of misuse. Oldham I. It's outrageous, mate. It's absolutely outrageous. I just don't understand it. Now, let me play a little only so I can get my voice back as well. Let me play something for you. And I want to then talk about it. Good evening to all of you who have joined us. And by the way, you'll see a buy me a coffee and support me thing at the bottom, and we're on YouTube. So all of you, please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, just click and subscribe or like the video. The reason why is that the analytics work on YouTube will work in such a way where if we get enough subscribers and enough likes and enough engagement in these videos, these videos are then automatically recommended to other people in the town or with similar interests. And this news just gets out to more and more people. Because if we don't do it, the honest truth is, if we don't do what we're doing, no one would know about what's gone on. And they'd carry on thinking it was a far-right conspiracy, or promoting it as a far-right conspiracy. It's not a far-right conspiracy. The council were involved in the cover-up of the gang rape and grooming of our children.
Hi everyone, we're here for a live debate and Q&A with Oldham Council Leader Sean Fielding and Liberal Democrat Councillor Sam AL-HAMDANI. And they're joining us after Oldham agreed its annual budget for next year last night, where councillors, or at least a majority of councillors, voted for a 2.99% increase in council tax and nearly £9 million worth of cuts. So I thought what we'd start with is Sean, because it's obviously your Labour administration, it's your budget. And could you just explain to us why you've agreed a 2.99% increase? Because that's less than you could have raised council tax by.
Well, I think I find myself in a strange position here because I'm here to defend a budget that I would rather not have had to pass. As you've outlined, it proposes £9 million worth of cuts, which is not enough compared to the amount of cuts that we would have to make, which is actually 28 million. And we're using our reserves to balance off the remaining cuts in the short term, whilst we undertake a transformation programme at the council to derive the savings over the longer term. And we will make those cuts in the future so that the council can become more sustainable, but we just need to use reserves to balance off the gap. As well, we have to use the increase in council tax to do the same thing. So the government has announced that each council has the opportunity, if it chooses to raise council tax up to 4.99%. We chose not to do that in Oldham because even though it would have made the budget balancing process easier, it would have brought in an additional just short of £2 million, which would mean that we'd have to use less reserves. We absolutely acknowledge that Oldham has challenges in terms of deprivation and poverty. Many of our households, even if they weren't already struggling, many more of them are now struggling as a result of the economic conditions caused by COVID. So even though the Chancellor was encouraging us and cheering us on to increase council tax by 5%, which many of our neighbours across Greater Manchester and beyond have done, we chose not to do that in Oldham. And we think we've got the balance right between balancing the books and not having to ask too much additional money from our residents.
And Sam, you're part of the main opposition group on Oldham Council, which is made up of Liberal Democrats. And your group proposed an alternative budget with amendments to the current budget. But the one thing you didn't really quarrel over was that amount of council tax increase. Why did you feel like you didn't have to oppose that?
Well, nobody wants to see council tax going up. As Sean said, this is a budget that he didn't want to put forward. And I think I would agree with that principle. At the start of coronavirus, the national government came forward and said that local governments would get the money that they needed. And that didn't happen. So in terms of that council tax rise, we have to have a balanced budget. It has to be approached in a way that makes a reasonable amount of sense. And whilst I would challenge some of the details of what was proposed by the Labour Party, it was, in terms of council tax, it could have been worse. It made sense that we had to balance the books in some way. And as much as politicians are supposed to fight with each other, I'd rather not have a fight if I don't have to. I'd rather try and come to sensible decisions together.
From a resident's perspective, what they're being told is they're going to have to pay more and the council is actually going to be delivering less. And then that's going to continue year on year. Can you understand why people...
I've had enough, sorry. That's as much as I can stomach of that. Charlotte Green, Sam AL-HAMDANI and Sean Fielding put this together the day after I broadcast, just before the budget was announced. I timed my thing on purpose because I spent 2 days making my way through 927 page document because these people aren't honest. Charlotte Green, the local democracy reporter, is complicit in avoiding reporting all of these issues that we raise. She was involved in writing the story where the headline was from Sean Fielding that children and their families made up being groomed and gang raped at exactly the time that these victims received letters asking to come forward to give evidence. I don't believe that headline and those letters were a coincidence. I believe that was strategically coordinated to intimidate and scare people, young women who as children had been failed by the council, by the police, by social services, by the courts. And then they get a letter saying, oh, we might have got something wrong. Come and give some evidence to Andy Burnham's team. And on the front page of the newspapers, and not only did they get it wrong, they changed the headline 3 times, 4 times. But the headline that first went out was Sean Fielding. Charlotte Green's headline that first went out, it was her story, was that Sean Fielding was accusing these children and their families of making up being abused. Now, the first and obvious observation is, what is Sam Al-HAMDANI doing? That's after Sean Fielding's hair, of course. What is Sam Al-HAMDANI doing there? He is not the leader of the Lib Dems. He is not the deputy leader of the Lib Dems. Where is Howard Sykes? Where is Gloucester? Why aren't they there? Why is this? They suit each other. Hamdani and Fielding suit each other. A pair of wet lettuces. Sean's right. As Sean said, I agree with Sean. Al-HAMDANI, why is your party still refusing? Why is your party, members of your party, why is Howard Sykes, Gloucester and yourself still refusing to answer a simple question of when you personally knew your mate Rod Blythe had been fiddling with kids, convicted of Category A, making of Category A, sex offenders register for 10 years. Yet you all covered it up. When did you know? Why won't you answer this? And it makes it worse because Howard Sykes, as well as standing up and giving a eulogy to Rod Blythe after he'd resigned, and his resignation came about because of a failed attempt to kill himself because the police had arrested him and found out what had gone on. Gave a eulogy of how Rod Blythe, the child sex offender, was his friend, and then gave, to make matters worse, openly acknowledged that the prolific child sex offender who was protected by the security services in this country, Cyril Smith, was his mate. So come on, Al-HAMDANI, Howard Sykes, Chris Gloucester, Diane Williamson, or whatever you called her. What's the other guy called? Harkness. When did you all personally know that your mate fiddled with kids? Or is it a liberal thing? Is it accepted in the Liberal Democrats because you're all liberals? Now, Al-HAMDANI makes a mistake. He claims that the government said, go and do what you need and we'll give you the money. Oldham's financial problems has got bugger all, or the council's financial problems has got bugger all to do with coronavirus. They've still got reserves from the money that they received from the government on coronavirus. They're hoping that the money that the government are giving them, the government won't claw it back so they can keep it. Maybe to hire some more young women that Sean likes to hire in his press team so he can appear on national TV. No. This had nothing to do with the economic conditions caused by COVID. And furthermore, Fielding claims and Charlotte Green in her paper and AL-HAMDANI, all of them claim the rise is 2.99%. The rise is over 3%. Go and do your sums. If you're in Band A last year, you're in Band A this year, add the difference up, the last number you had from the previous year, times it by 3%, and you'll see your rise has gone up by more than the 2.99% that these people claim. It's just black and white electioneering. And all this time, hidden in that budget that Charlotte Green won't even question, is that the council auditors, the council's own auditors, have warned the council they're at risk of bankruptcy. Now I'm going to quickly go through a number of issues that came out of that budget. I won't be long because we've done a budget thing before, but I've got a handful of points. In the last 10 years, the Labour Party-run council in Oldham have paid out just short of £200 million in interest payments for money that they've borrowed. This was to pay back borrowed money for one failed vanity scheme after another that go back to the days of Jim McMahon and his stupidness of the Old Town Hall, Hotel Future, and I don't know, Our House, or was it Our House? That closed with massive debt. £200 million of interest payments over the last 10 years. That is 2 full years worth of council tax income. Just pause and think what this town could have done with £200 million. And the interest payments are only increasing because we're borrowing more money. In addition to borrowing more money, in the budget is confirmation that Oldham Council has burned through, and Sean Fielding made reference to this, about this year also relying on reserves. That's your money and my money. Reserves, our savings, £50 million. £50 million of the town reserves, 2 years. And a further £36 million earmarked for future years. And we know whatever the figures they earmark, they also increase. So the best part of £100 million of our reserves gone. On top of the £200 million in interest payments. Buried in the budget. They're selling the historical assets, our buildings, our heritage. And I've brought story after story after story of that. 2 million more. Once we've sold them, it's gone. The Carnegie Library in Chadderton sold to a businessman associate of Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon out campaigning with this guy openly. Sat in his house or one of their mates' house having dinner together. No doubt sold at a discount price to a bloke, along with the old historical swimming baths and the police station. And the library, they made it into a Muslim school. The Carnegie Library in Chadderton, sold at a knockdown price. Jim McMahon, on record, supporting the sale. And they made it into a Muslim school. The police station, they won't release how much they sold the police station for. You know why? Because the guy's now flipping the police station for over £500,000. I reckon he's tripling his money. And this organisation that they're involved in, who bought Carnegie, bought the old police station, the former chief executive was done for fraud. Just months earlier. Reported that he belonged to an Asian criminal syndicate. That's a cartel. And the 2.99% that I've said is 3%. They're scumbags. The pair of them. Absolute scumbags. Sorry, I'm going to put the pictures back on. Absolute scumbags. No mention of the stealth taxes buried in the budget. Working families don't claim benefits who live on the cusp pay for their children's school meals. The price of school meals is going up significantly. When hard working families who have been most hit by coronavirus and COVID because they've been on furlough with 80% wages when they're already on minimum wage or close to minimum wage, they've increased the price of school meals. And this is after all the political gesturing to do with Marcus Rashford and supporting school meals and wanting free school meals. At the very first opportunity, this council goes and increases the price of school meals. All the council rents are going up. And AL-HAMDANI is fine with it. Now, I remember living in a council house or a housing association house as well. I paid my rent because I was working part-time here and there. And I knew most of the people around me lived on housing benefit and didn't pay their rent. How does that make hard-working families in this town feel? They'll think, what's the point of working? Which is exactly what Sean Fielding and his mates want you to do. They want you to think, what's the point of working? Because this town specialises in poverty. They want you on benefits. Because then they can use you as a political tool to go to the government demanding more money that they can use to hire more press officers at 50 grand a pop and give themselves record pay rises again. £100,000. He knew the challenges. He's cut Madlaw funding. He's cut Men in Sheds funding. And that's just £100,000 we know about on 2 new press officers into his communications team. You saw me scroll through the pages of salaries of his execs. 20 or 30 pages there were. 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000, 90, 100, 110, all the way up to £185,000. Plus expenses. Plus 15-20% pension contributions. This town is run by people who care nothing for the people. They're leeches. They're just leeches. And he talks about the increase in council tax. That's the lowest percentage increase. Either Sean Fielding and AL-HAMDANI either are a pair of twits or they take the people of our town for fools. If our council tax, and it is, if our council tax is one of the highest in the country, then even at a lower percentage increase than other neighbouring towns, the actual amount we pay is more than others. So we started off paying more, and we're paying even more. They take us for fools. They take us for fools. And there are consequences. There are consequences. Real life consequences. Just give me a second. I'm going to phone Peter Brown up. You've seen what's took place with Peter Brown. You saw me at Crompton Cemetery. They're now exhuming the body and moving it somewhere else. And when they spoke to the council, the councillor, you know what she had to say? She wouldn't even bury her dog in the cemetery because it was that bad.
Evening, Roger.
Evening, Peter. You're on speaker, Peter, and I am just going to let you tell the story, Peter, because so Peter, just before you tell the story, you know, we spoke 2 weeks ago, and I saw the Oldham Times finally ran with a story. So you shamed them. Finally, you persevered, and they finally ran a story. So more and more people are now knowing about what's going on in our cemeteries.
It is, but I thought my time of fighting were over with it, to be truthful, Roger. Hang on, it's gone off.
I can hear you. You carry on.
Cool, sorry. I thought it were over having to carry on doing this, but it's affecting my family, as you know. My mum and dad are underwater. My cousin lost his wife in that article. But the worst thing is that it was reported to the council, and shame on, in the article that they put, and whoever did the statement, I spoke to Councillor Brownridge twice last week. But going back to when I spoke, I'm getting a noise in background, just let me what's it.
You need to turn the sound down at your end because that's the delay. So you just need to...
Yeah, that's right. Right, so the council were informed of graves flooding 7 years ago. And I said, if you don't get something done at the cemetery, I'll get Granada Television down. The shit hit the fan. They couldn't shut fast enough. And there was a massive culvert for over 12 months. They were tipping all the grave waste down this void in the ground at the back of the Catholics. But where were it going? Anyway, after me complaining, saying I were going to get the television down, within a few weeks, they had a jetting firm, they had engineers down, and a culvert had collapsed, and they were jetting the drains that were blocked up solid. Heaven knows how long they've been maintained.
So it had nothing to do with what Barbara Brownbridge said. What it's to do with this because...
to that in a bit, Raj.
All right, I'll let you do it. You've got something rehearsed. Go on.
Anyway, so that was done 7 years ago. They dried the ground up. What's happening where my family is, in the middle, and going to the edges, is exactly what happened at the back. Now, for all those poor souls at the back, that's why I complained. You know, it wasn't near my section where my families are. They were coming very near, so I nipped it in the bud. Anyway, I spoke to the digger driver. I kept going up to see how they were going on. And I said to the JCB driver, what is it? I said, have you found something? He said, we have. He said, it's culvert. He said, you know, this is going to happen again. So I don't know what cost of the repair they did. Now, the cost on the repair, what they're trying to do now, they're debating. Are they going to do, and this was with the surveyor, with my cousin who lost his wife. We had a meeting just Friday last week, only talking 2 days ago. Councillor Hazel Gloucester and the engineer, the surveyor. Now he says, I'll do my report. And I said, and what are you going to do when you send the report back? He said, well, I'm going to say that we need this job sorting once and for all. Now I said to Hazel Gloucester, they've just said that it was this is the engineer and the surveyor, a man who knows what he's doing, who said about, when I repeated the article, the Oldham Council has already said that it is looking at ways to stop the flooding at the cemetery. But it has attributed recent rainfall during Storm Christoph and melting snow as the main cause of the problem. Now, Councillor Hazel Gloucester says they've not done that. I said they have. So I said to the surveyor with Councillor Hazel Gloucester there, can you tell me that this is the result of Storm Christoph? He said they are very, very premature in their diagnosing. To me, we're looking at possibly a collapsed culvert or blocked drains. They were very premature. Really, they shouldn't have said it. But as we all know, those council officers aren't civil engineers. So whoever put this clip together, and I believe Nick Jackson, he spoke to my cousin, and I believe Nick Jackson spoke to Barbara Brownridge, because I phoned Barbara Brownridge up, councillor, cabinet member, on Monday, and disclosed to her the heartbreaking story of my cousin, heartbroken, me and all. I haven't been able to sleep all week because of the knowing what's going to happen of having to have her removed. And she asked me for my cousin's number. I give it her. And later on that night, my cousin phoned me up in tears again, which he has been every week, heartbroken about having to remove her. Because it goes up, as we all know, when a death in the family is raw like this, you're going up. You go up more in that first 12 months than you ever do. You know, on some people, they never get over a bereavement.
No, you're right.
Some people can get over it in a short time, but there are counselling for bereavement. And what this council done, and I'm sure Barbara Brownridge, when I had a meeting, like I said, with this surveyor, and said what were in the paper, and she said, no, Mr. Brown, I said that it was possibly due to the heavy rainfall, but there could be underlying issues. I said, nothing of the sort. And I think you put on a paper and a comment from the Oldham Council last week.
It was 2 weeks ago. I put it. 2 weeks ago, I put it up to show, and that only came about because of what we'd done, Peter.
It is. I agree. Yeah, and don't forget, Roger, that they said it was due to Storm Christoph. I reported it last March. I took pictures last March, 12 months ago, of graves underwater.
So you reported it. So you reported it a year before the storm. Not the blame.
Through Councillor Hazel Gloucester, who will verify it. Now, Charlie phoned me up Saturday morning, and there's been comments like there is in the Oldham Times for clarity on the people who are saying, well, you know, we can't stop the rain falling. No, we cannot. But what we can do is hold this council to account when the press haven't printed what even Councillor Brownwich, cabinet member, stated, she said, and other underlying issues. There's nothing in that press release to say of underlying issues.
That's because, Nick Jackson, that's because the Oldham Times receives an undisclosed amount of money from a so-called cash-strapped council every month, every year. They get paid. They're on the payroll. The Oldham Times are on the council's payroll.
I'm just reading it down here. I had it in front of me. They did remark about it, Raja, halfway down the middle paragraph. But for the this was my statement. But for the council to say that the problem is down to the recent bad weather is just plain wrong. The same area of that cemetery was flooded last March when the weather was nothing like as bad during Storms Christoph. But it stopped there. I notified Councillor Hazel Gloucester. Unfortunately, she'd walked the wrong area. She walked in the big open space. And when we met her a couple of months ago to raise this issue, and I said, it's here, Hazel. It's here where it's all underwater. Well, Peter, she said, I'd walked the wrong area. So what did happen? I don't know. But if they'd have phoned us up and got the proper directions. Now, Storm Christoph, let's go back to that. Unfortunately, it could be 50-50. Storm Christoph did bring a high volume of water. Now, Councillor Hazel Gloucester attended both surveys. One over a month ago, the other one last Friday. And that over a month ago, me, my cousin, Councillor Hazel Gloucester, and this engineer, we walked round to the areas. As you come in the main gate and go where the old greenhouses were, there were a massive flood of area there. The grids are totally blocked. Now, when the water subsided and he came again, he tried to lift the grids up with me and Councillor Hazel Gloucester there. He couldn't lift the grids up. Now, we admit, when we have rain, aren't we supposed to have drainage system to take that water away to where it should go? Dirty water system, sewer system. But even the engineer said, what use is it having gullies and grids when you haven't cleaned them out? Now, his men were in the gully sucker, and he just broke off from me and Councillor Gloucester and said, let me just get my men on this and we'll carry on walking round. They couldn't get the grids up, and we are now over 5 weeks. The grids are still blocked solid, and they can't get them up. So, the second half of the three-part issue, where they just blaming Storm Christoph and the melting snow, as you come down, you videoed it, Raja, when you kindly came out and we raised the issue, the path then goes steeply down to the Catholic section.
It does. I've seen it. I've walked down with you.
They've raised the road due to a public complaint who spoke to my cousin when my cousin was there trying to bail water away with a receptacle away from his wife's grave in tears, and he said, look at the height of the road. And this lady said, well, I asked for the road to be hired because it was very uneven and it was all broken up. So my cousin said, yes, but you've allowed all water to flood all the grades. So the second mullock that this council have done, the gullies is the first. The second mullock is that they hired a road higher than the grades, flooded the whole area, and the third mullock is where they keep saying Storm Christoph, all them areas through the great incompetence of the block gullies and the iron of road has gone down and the ground's dry. in the middle where they said it was all down, completely down, and the main cause of this problem was to that storm. That's the statement this council put out, is wrong. I've been up there today. It's still underwater. The surveyor said the problem could be broken culverts, blocked drains. We'll investigate. It will take a fortnight for my report to go to the council, and then it's bickering time. Are we going to do a cheap do, as Councillor Hazel Gloucester quoted last week? And this surveyor said, it comes down to them. But in my report, I will say that it must be done a once and for all job. It's absolute, but it's, you know, they don't print the truth. And I phoned Charlie up and I said, please, if there's any comments and it's on any Facebook or any what the council put out, or any member of the public who's telling the truth, just phone, especially the people at Shaw, please phone Hazel Gloucester up and say, was it down to the storm Christoph? And she will tell you that the surveyor says possibly due this area here in the middle that's caused this grave still underwater, still very, very wet. You couldn't go to those poor souls' graves in shoes. Couldn't do it. Absolutely impossible.
We have a town where the politicians control the purse strings, but there is no dignity for our dead. They've just increased the costs to bury our loved ones, yet there is no dignity for our dead. It's a disgrace. Sorry, Peter. It's a disgrace. I'm not a politician here or anything. I'm just outraged. This is a disgrace. If we can't provide dignity for our dead, then what good are we?
Well, that's just it, Raja. You came out kindly when I did a protest outside Asda and Aldi.
I was embarrassed, Peter. Sorry, let me just stop you there, please, because I want to share this before you say anything, because I think it's important I share this. I was embarrassed, Peter, not at you or not at me. I was embarrassed at what was taking place around us. People were ignoring you. People were being abusive to you. People were laughing. And I just found it shameful that the people of Shaw, who many of them will bury their loved ones in that cemetery round the corner, have no interest in what this council are doing, and that you, and sorry, I don't mean it disrespectfully, an elderly gentleman who shouldn't have to do this is trying to raise awareness and force the council to act. I was embarrassed for us. I was embarrassed for the people of Shaw that they behaved the way they did towards you, Peter. You're not a raving madman. You have a family member in that funeral. The likelihood is, Pete, it's where you'll be buried.
I have 11 family members.
It's where you'll be buried.
Yeah.
And come on.
I'm going there.
Come on.
Yeah.
This is sickening. That they treat, and I saw you. I came to see you, and you're in the Asda, I think, when I spoke with you.
I were
and the two Asian lads in the car who were giving you jip, and then other people who were, mouthing off at you. It could have made me cry. It could have made me cry, Peter.
They were in the 40s. There was only one gentleman, and that was when I did the other hour at Aldi, and he came out. And he must have been early 60s. I couldn't believe it. And he looked across the road and he put his hand to his right temple, screwed it round and said, "You're an effing lunatic." And I stormed after him. I said, "Is it your mother and father? Is it your relations? Are 11 of your family underwater?" And he stormed off. And I saw him wind his window down at the car park. He must have been waiting for his wife. And I said, "You've got to come past me, mate. I'll wait for you." And do you know what I think? I think he sat in the bloody footwell of his motor and let his wife drive him back. Now, the police came down And I overheard a man and wife said, oh, they'll move him now. And as the policeman came down, and don't forget, I notified the gentleman who right at your programme, I spoke to him directly, Detective Chief Inspector James Faulkner. And I were informed Inspector James Faulkner about the protest, and he said, I'm not really happy, I can't stop you, but I'm going to ask the council to get back to you to see if we can come through an amicable agreement where you don't have to do it. What happened, Raja? Nothing. They didn't get back. They gave that statement that said it were all down to Storm Christoph.
They take us for fools. They take us for fools.
They do. But the thing is, going back, why we don't seem to get anywhere, at 67, and as you get older, you get sick of everything that's going on. I'm sick of the society that we're living in now, and it's all down to government. Pure and simple, down to government.
They've disempowered us. They've disempowered us. It's intentional. They've disenfranchised.
Disempowered us, but they've left us to wolves who are ripping us apart.
They've left us to the wolves. They have. They've left us to the wolves. You're right, Peter.
They've left us to the wolves. But I'm halfway through the letter now. On the very first programme, when I was saying I went to court and we're on about Oldham Council, and how I got the ICO, they lost and breached my data protection. And we got on your, looking at your scrolls, well, tell us that way, take it to the ICO. Well, I did take it to the ICO, and they just slapped them on the hand. My data weren't safe. And I picked up a pamphlet when I was booking in protest, and the first stages of identity fraud were what they lost. What they lost. But people are saying, do this, do that. And I mentioned I'd wrote to Robert Jenrick, went through Debbie Abrams. It took about 5 months to get the reply. And Robert Jenrick didn't reply in person. He put it down to another MP who sent me back 4 years going all through the whole state. Now, this letter is being sent every damn week. And the only way, and I think it was, Shadab Kumar, when he was mayor, and I said to Shadab, when they were telling me to shut up, and they walked out to the council, I said, I'd like a word with you, Mr. Mayor, after this. I don't think you know, and that we're against Blythe, what's going on. Will you kindly have a word with me? And he did. He came, he took his robe off, and he came back, and he said, listen, the only way that you're going to get this change, and this is for every single person listening in, is to get the Act of Parliament changed, where government now oversees all local councils. And that is the only way that we can get some form of accountability in. Now, if they don't do that, you might as well stick voting for any of the main parties. Any of them.
Peter.
It was a Conservative government that brought in this power that allowed councils to adopt codes of conduct for the implementation, but they changed the rules. That 1,140 public signatures we had to oust councillors out for lying, deceiving, colluding, cover up against the public while holding public office. Their outcome was it was noted. Noted.
Peter,
well, what does that mean?
You're not
We
going to
wanted them out. They should have acted on it. But the localism act allows them to do it. And it's an act of parliament. And like Shadab Kubar said, the only way you're going to get it altered and stopped is to an act of parliament.
It's not, Peter.
So,
It's no, Peter. Sorry, I'm going to stop you there. It's not. Because we can vote, and sorry, because as far as I'm concerned, what we've got to do is go out and vote for these independent candidates.
I agree.
We've got to go out and vote for these.
Yeah.
We can't. No one is going to come and rescue us, Peter. I keep saying this to everyone. And then the other thing, in terms of the Localism Act, there is a way. There is a way of forcing a referendum. They've done it in Sheffield, or they're doing it in Sheffield, they're doing it in other towns and cities, where we can take power back. There is a way, and it's something we're going to be working on after the local elections, because it's one step at a time. Now, Peter, sorry, before I let you go.
No, you're right. You're 100% right.
Peter, before I let you go, what are they doing with you? You know, what with the you know, have you got another plot to lay her to rest? What's going on? Because I think people want to know.
He's had to pay over £4,000. The council are charging him. It's, as you know, it's going through the Home Office, and it's whether the Home Office do allow it. But in my letter to Robert Jenrick, this council needs looking at for all the issues that I'm going to raise. I said yes to other people. Regarding the councillors voting them out, I agree. I slipped up. I agree entirely. But what about the postal vote fraud? It's not been addressed.
I'm going to do an episode on that. I'm going to do an episode on how postal vote fraud takes place, and an insider's guide to postal vote fraud. I'll do that next week. So I'll do that next week. And I'll just
leave you with this, because he ended up with Sykes, Gloucester, Murphy. He was called Murphy, Councillor Murphy. And he knew months and months before, when I was in the community centre, I've been in a meeting with Hazel Gloucester, Councillor Hazel Gloucester. I was thrown out, and Councillor Murphy said that shouldn't have happened. And I said, listen, he's one of yours. He said, he will never be coming back, Peter. They knew. And it was Councillor Murphy who bragged to me. You know who called the police when you were in the council chamber, Peter? It was me. So all the people who were continuing hard fast to keep voting, please think. I'm not going to say, all I'm saying is, look at the information, look at the cover-up, please think.
Peter, thank you very, very much. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Take
all
care.
Right, bye-bye.
So that's Peter Brown, and he's right. Please think. We had Mark Hints on last week. Howard Sykes is up for re-election in Shaw. Howard Sykes had said nothing about Compton Cemetery. He should be outraged that this town has no dignity for our dead, and that one of his colleagues happily confirmed when asked that she wouldn't bury her dog there. Howard Sykes didn't even attend that interview, and he sent Sam Al-Hamdani there, who sat there nodding away. I agree with Sean. I agree with the Labour Party. They're in bed together. This town has a chance to take out Howard Sykes, and it'll be difficult because Shaw is a Lib Dem stronghold and Mark Ince is new. The Labour Party candidate would get lost in Shaw without an A to Z. In fact, he's a friend of mine, Maroof. He has no interest in Shaw. He just wants to be a Labour Party politician wherever he can, because he can't be a politician where he lives, because the cartels control Medlock Vale. So he's got no chance there. You have a chance in Shaw, just as you have a chance in Medlock Vale, just as you have a chance in Saddleworth North and South and Saddleworth West and Leeds. You have a chance, we have a chance to finally stand up for ourselves and say, we're not going to take this anymore. They are corrupt, they are crooked, and they, as we've shown this week, have taken this town to the verge of bankruptcy. Not a single newspaper raised it. Not a single politician raised it. We're all in it together. Noticed there was no cutbacks in their salaries. No, there was no cutbacks in their numbers. Instead, they cut a youth provision. They cut a project that looks after the elderly. Men in sheds. Sorry, I'm looking at that. Yvonne, I hear proud of Oldham and Saddleworth of a candidate in Hollingwood, Ronnie Bailey. I'm hoping to get him up at some point. I mean, I just look at Hollingwood. The Labour Party councillor, well, he's now not a councillor, who mysteriously disappeared off the council list, Martin Judd, who I exposed a year ago. We all found out, mate, 6 weeks ago? That is to face trial for child sex offences. Category A, once again. He was a governor of a nursery and infant school. Should you not have been told that a councillor has been charged and faces trial for child sex offences, and he had access to your children in a nursery school? They covered it up. And then it emerges he was Sean Fielding's drinking partner. No, I'm not making it up. He was Sean Fielding's drinking partner. They're pictured together with other Labour Party politicians and wannabe politicians. They were even pictured out drinking with a council officer. There's something not quite right in this town. And that's beyond Jim McMahon and his relationships with the mosques and these Asian men. It's beyond Irishimi and the gangsters associations with a number of Labour Party politicians. It's beyond the dodgy sale of our land and our assets. There's something not quite right in this town. At what point does all of this stop becoming a coincidence? I'm going to put the comments up here and I'll just make this a bit bigger. Give me a second. So I'm grateful to all of you join me on YouTube this evening. It's a combination of factors. We're migrating across from one page to another, and they'll keep trying. They'll keep trying to close us down. They'll keep trying to get me arrested. They'll keep trying, but I'll keep going for as long as I can keep going. I'm grateful to all of you who've bought me a coffee and somehow managed to donate, irrespective of what Facebook have done. I've seen the gloating posts that apparently it's the beginning of the end for me. I'm still waiting for the police to go and arrest people who've called me a police informant and put my life further at risk. I'm still waiting to hear condemnation from Jim McMahon and Debbie Abrahams on the attack of the Jewish factory. That doesn't make me that doesn't make me the racist. Hopefully I get to see you all next week. Thank you very, very much. And I am heartbroken for Debbie. Having to leave her home. Having to leave her home. And why? Run out of town for daring to speak out against this abuse the sexual abuse, the grooming and gang rape of our town's children. Something not right.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.